Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Interjections podcast, subtitled The Undiscovered Decade. We're doing our best of 1994. I know typically you've seen us all together live, but we felt like Zoom is our format, and that's
Yeah.
fine with
Well,
us. And
I
we're
like how you
all
did the
much further away than we are.
air quotes for live. We were actually CGI'd in.
That's
Well,
true. Well,
Jimmy,
Those
Jimmy's
were
in lockdown right now.
yeah, this is where we started, so this is where we should be.
We're going back to our roots.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Jimmy's
Yeah.
being
we're
hunted by the
we're just getting
government.
boxed in, man.
Oh my God. You're using that aesthetic too well. As you may remember from years past in our best of episodes, we have something called a Borda count, which is where you rank things you pick 5-1, and the highest one gets 5 points, the lowest one gets 1. And that's what we do with our top 5. So everyone's top film probably gets in. That's typically what happens. As you'll see, we'll get into it right now. I'm going to start off with the first two films, our number 5 film and our number 4 film tied. So I'm going to start alphabetically with the one that was my number 1 film of 1994, Chungking Express, a film I bet two of you don't even know.
Nope.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. I asked you about this because it's on Criterion, I believe, right?
It is, yeah. It tells two different stories, sort of about the same thing. It takes place in and around Hong Kong. The first half is about a cop who is lovelorn and trying to get over a breakup and meets a new mysterious woman as he's trying to track down the drug dealers that are ruining his precinct. And then the second half is about a woman who works at a takeaway shop in the local mall, which is where you get the express from. The businessman that comes and frequents her place. She longs to get away. And the thing I liked the most about it is that she listens to California Dreamin', which is kind of a very literal metaphor about wanting to get to America. Part of the reason I loved this film, besides how poignant it is, and it's one of the best romances I've ever seen, it definitely feeds into the romantic in me. I had a unique experience seeing it the first time. I was home one summer day a couple of years after it came out, and I wake up and I turn on the TV to watch something. I don't care what it is. Mom had gone off to get something, like do an errand, I don't know. And this movie was happening, Chungking Express. And I watched it to the end, and I told Mom about it when she came home, and she's like, I was watching that right before I left, and I was sad that I had to leave. So I told her the second half of the movie, which was its own contained story, and she told me the first half, which was its own contained story. Years later, I finally saw that first half on my own, but it was kind of cool that we were able to like tell the story to each other, having seen both. Watching it again and appreciating it, it became one of my favorite films. I eventually got the collection of Wong Kar-wai's films that Criterion put out, so I have other ones to watch, like In the Mood for Love, which Tony Leung, who plays that businessman, he's from Hero and a couple other films that you might have heard of, but his big role was In the Mood for Love by Wong Kar-wai a couple of years later, I think. I forget when that comes out. It's a big thing in China. This is really what started off Wong Kar-wai's ascendancy in Chinese film.
I'm glad you brought this up because normally we just talk about American films, unless because
You
we
had
usually.
one on your list that was Chinese, actually,
Oh yeah, yes,
or
right.
from Hong Kong.
Yeah, because usually when we curate what titles we're going to talk about, we usually go through the wiki page and it's like movies released in America.
Yeah,
So I'm glad you got to spotlight something international.
it's kind of tough to parse the list on Wikipedia because they have 1994 in film, and then they have a list of American films from 94, and then Canadian and Chinese and Hungarian and everything else. If you went through all of them, there's one film from that list that might happen. Like I glanced last night at the Canadian list, and Santa Claus is on there because maybe a producer is from Canada.
Probably shot in Canada, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know why it's on that list, but
Right.
that was one of the 2 relevant films on that list. So it's kind of a waste of time to go through all of them, unless you happen to have Chungking Express. Or what was the film you had on your list?
I think it was Drunken Master, right?
Yeah, I think it was either second or third on your list.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good Jackie Chan action film, like right at the peak of his time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I recommend it highly. Maybe we can all watch it sometime together.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, you've never seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But I remember asking you about it during one of the flash sales because I was gonna blind buy it.
It's a very Tristan film, if that helps all of you.
What you sold me on is, I think when you described it to me, you said it's kind of a mood piece, and I kind of like mood
Yeah.
pieces. So
Yeah, there's a lot of watching people be forlorn. It's very Tristan.
yeah, like weirdly, it's I kind of like that you sold it as kind of lackadaisical, very almost non-narrative, just a slice of life.
Yeah. There was a bit of an industry in China of films like that around that time, like the
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
In the Mood for Love, I hear is kind of the pinnacle of that. So Wong Kar-wai is sort of the master of it. So the next one is actually going to be your number one film, Corey,
Oh,
Crumb, which
yeah.
is a film we barely talked about during the podcast as well.
Because it's a documentary. We don't usually talk about documentaries. So it's about the underground artist Robert Crumb, who I don't know if many people know, but
I do know him.
you do know. Okay. Oh, okay. So he's kind of well known for making kind of his art style was more caricature, and it was based on his real life, but they were more adult oriented, like graphic novels. So kind of like what like Harvey Pekar was doing in the 70s and 80s. He
The
was
American Splendor guy.
Yeah, he was inspired by Art Crumb. And this is about it's a documentary directed by Terry Zwigoff, who went on to do like Bad Santa, Art School Confidential, Ghost World. You get to find out about like his family history on top of what influenced his drawings. It's just everybody in it is so idiosyncratic. It's funny when you watch movies like fictional movies and you're like, nobody like this could ever exist in the real world. And then you watch a movie like this, you're like, wait, there are very quirky, odd people out in the real world. And they're not putting it on as a facade or anything.
Everybody's a character.
Exactly. And it actually has like speaking of a melancholy tone, it has a very melancholy tone once you find out about how his family has this like history of mental illness, and especially there's a coda at the end about his one brother that I believe took his own life shortly after the completion of the film. But I went in there just knowing that Siskel and Ebert gave it like a rave review when it first came out. And normally the subject matter doesn't necessarily in my wheelhouse. Watching it, I could see how it made it accessible, even though his drawings are so esoteric and completely about his own life, like his sexual kinks, his dysfunctions, his rejection from women. It's almost like Fritz the Cat, if anybody remembers Fritz the Cat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like like very mature. But it's spellbinding from beginning to end.
I think a hallmark of Terry Zwigoff. He can capture you right off the bat.
I forget who did the novel for Ghost World, but it's in that same ballpark because he's really good at adapting graphic novels, because Art School Confidential, I believe, is also a graphic novel as well.
It is, Rick, Jimmy.
Art School Confidential?
Yeah, no, it's about animators or artists, right?
No, it's just artists. Just dude's going to Pratt.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Where you went?
Well, he's
particularly,
It's weird that they would pick, because this is obviously a documentary, but he makes such a smooth transition into narrative films later on with like Bad Santa and Ghost World. So this is like almost a launching point for him. It's kind of a shame we don't hear from him that much nowadays. Art Crumb, I think he's living overseas now.
He is
Living
still
in
alive.
exile.
That's good.
Living in exile.
He's 81
Yeah,
already. He's from Philly. I didn't know that.
Towards the end of the movie, you see him packing up and leaving. So
I don't know where he is. He moved to a small village near Sauve in southern France in 1991. So right before this documentary.
Right.
It is
so he's
saying
cliche.
it is saying what has happened to the rest of the family that's focused on in the documentary, which I will not spoil for you.
Yeah, definitely watch the documentary. It's
Oh
fantastic.
boy.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot. He might be the only one still around of that.
I think Jeff would like this.
Yeah.
I do. I am a fan of documentaries and ridiculous artists.
Underground comics artists. Yeah. Ghost World was Daniel Clowes or Close. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Okay.
Who often illustrates in the style of Art Crumb. He was inspired by him. So
there you go.
That's why it's kind of up his alley.
Circle.
Number 3 is another person in our group's number 1. But I have to count myself lucky because our next 3 were all on my list, which helped launch them higher. So that is sort of why I'm thrilled today. I don't know if I lucked out. I didn't look at Corey sent his first and then I did mine. And somehow each one of you picked one of my films that wasn't my number 1. So 4 of my 5 are our top 5.
Now, when you were explaining the scoring thing at the beginning, I got worried because I sent them ranking. I did not send them point value.
Yeah, and I just flipped it.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure that we're
Yeah, I go by with the ranking, and then you change it to be number 1 gets 5.
That's why you're the math guy.
You didn't. It's not that hard, you know. And
But
honestly,
you
the
seem to underestimate just how dumb I am when it comes to this stuff.
now that we've done 5 of these, I am learning that in a small sample size of just 4 people, it really just ends up being our favorite films are our top 5. And then if anything is on more than 2 people's list, it's the number 1. So you can all guess.
Goodfellas the one year, right?
Right. We all picked
Statistics.
Goodfellas. So it was like 15 points for that and then 5 for the rest of our films.
Mm.
But if you get a 5th person, that's where it starts to get more unique because you could just get the 5 top 5s or 5 tops. But it's obviously a better thing when it's such a larger count of people. They use this for the MVPs in most sports. So everyone's vote counts towards you pick a top 5 players in hockey, baseball, whatever. The top 1 gets 30 points, then 25, etc. And so then it all adds up. A perfect score ends up being 300 because there are however many people voting. But we only ever get about 15 because it's just been the same every year, which is fine. I mean, it's pretty obvious what the best film of the year will always be for all of us because it's going to be a popular film, something that we didn't cover. However, our number 3 is the only one of these top 5 that was one of our episodes this year. It's Renaissance Man, which was Jeff's number 1 film.
What?
Yeah, Renaissance Man, one of our
Wow.
favorites this year.
That's crazy.
Well, it was in my top 5. It was number 4 for me, which means it got 5 and 2. So with 7 points, it just sneaks past our number 1s.
Well, Jeff's a big Mark Wahlberg fan, so it makes sense.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that, Jeff?
I mean,
We did enough, but
we did a whole episode on it, but
why was it your number 1?
I enjoyed the heart of it, and it was a side of Danny DeVito that you don't usually see. And then it was just I don't know, I enjoyed it. Really stuck out to me. Like of the things that we did this year, that was one of the ones that I would watch that again. And I said everything that I wanted to. If you want to go back and watch the episode,
Sure.
But
it was June 1994.
Yes, it was a good movie.
It is the film.
We're not used to
That was
seeing
the one.
DeVito as a good influence in things
Right.
nowadays because of his Frank Reynolds alter ego on It's Always Sunny. So.
I know. I am happy we covered 2 films that he did where he's a nice guy. Because what was the one we did in
Jack the
93?
Bear.
Yeah, Jack. That was a pick by you, Corey, and
Yeah, it was
that
cool.
ended up being one of my top 5 that last year.
That was a real good movie too.
Yeah. So Danny DeVito had a good run as a nice father before he went completely off the rails in Philly.
After he's the Penguin.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good film. You should go back and watch that episode. You'll see why we all like it.
And shout out to Gregory Hines. Great.
It's a good
Yes.
Gregory Hines film we covered.
Oh yeah.
Unlike
Even Destruction.
Yeah. So our number 2 film is, now we've sort of narrowed it down. So I bet we all know who's going to talk next.
I know 1 and 2 are probably.
It is the number 1 film. Oh, do you want to guess number 2, Corey? I want to see.
It's either Pulp or Forrest Gump.
Interesting choice.
it's either Pulp or Shawshank.
No, it's Stargate. Jimmy's number 1 film was
You're kidding
Stargate,
me. Wow.
and I like Stargate. It was my number 2. Why don't you tell us why Stargate is one of the best films of 1994?
Well, for us, I don't know if it's one of the best because I get like,
Thank you.
yeah, I know.
Corey hates it.
Being around nerds like a good chunk of my life, like feels like it's 50-50. Like you either like it or you don't, and like the people that don't really love the show. I like the show. I love the movie more.
We talked about it a couple episodes ago when it came out. It was like a November 94 episode.
Yeah.
In the November 94 episode, they find a Stargate, which brings them to another world, and we find out that's where the Egyptian population went. And gods lived on, they say, but it was aliens.
Well, the gods are
manipulating
aliens the whole time.
The descendants of the Egyptian population. And that's pretty much the plot. It's not that.
Or I would probably go to say proto-Egyptian.
Right.
Because like they kind of just pick up like a bunch of people out in the middle of the desert, the way they establish it at the beginning of the movie. But I don't know. I think I liked it because they like just the way it looked and felt, and like it's kind of a out of this world exploration movie meets like a action.
It's Lawrence of Arabia meets Star Wars.
Yeah,
pretty much.
True. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that is the gist.
I like the music.
I got a weird question for you.
Yeah.
This is a production note.
Hmm.
The Stargate looks eerily similar to the time machine device in Time Cop, which also came out around the same year. I wonder if they reused the same prop.
I've heard there might be
Probably.
lawsuits that were brought up. I
Real?
don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
That just
But-
dawned on me.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, and I've never seen Time Cop, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
I bet they didn't think this was going to be a huge hit. I'm sure, like Roland Emmerich was coming up. He wasn't big yet. He gets
It was
huge
right after
in
he
2
just did
years,
Universal Soldier was before this.
right? And so then he does this. This kind of puts him more on the map, and then Independence Day is probably his peak.
Yeah,
Also another good movie.
Yeah.
some might say.
But yeah, this is another one that I wore out the tape. We love this film, my parents and I. You've never seen it, right, Jeff?
Negative.
Yeah, we gotta show Jeff, Jimmy.
Oh yeah.
You come up one time.
Indoctrinate him.
We'll get Jeff over and we'll watch Stargate. We'll enjoy it.
Okay.
Or not. You're not beholden to like a film or not.
Get MST3K that thing.
Anyway, this brings us to our number one film. This is a collective one. We all had it on our list, so no surprise, like I said before. And Corey already revealed it, like he often does, which is fine because we ask you to guess. You're always like, it's got to be one of two things. It happens every year.
I was gonna say those
Um,
were the top two contenders for Best Picture too. So
Right. And it's right behind your head. That's Pulp Fiction by a young Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Technically his second film, right? Well, Four Rooms.
my best friend's birthday.
Yeah, or the Natural Born Killers that he supposedly didn't do. So we covered it a little bit, but why do we all like Pulp Fiction?
I think it's the structure of it. If it was told linear, it would still be good because the dialogue is still sparkling. But the fact that it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle, but not in a confusing way. Like for instance, years later they do 21 Grams, which is a great movie, don't get me wrong, but that is scattershot all over the place in terms of the timeline.
It felt like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah, but this it never becomes confusing. It always keeps things fresh. It gives great roles to people who are fading in their careers, which this was Travolta's. People don't remember this now because he's kind of in obscurity again, but Travolta was in the downslide. He was basically out of show business. I think we even covered. I talked about one of his biggest bombs, which was Shout, which made like barely $1 million in the US. So he was basically done his career until he got this script, and then it kind of revived his career. So he had like a second wind,
Right.
something like this. Bruce Willis was kind of the same way.
Yeah, we were just talking about like what was that?
Striking Distance,
Yeah.
Color of Night. It's weird. It's
Almost
almost
just got saved at the last minute.
yeah, it's weird. Tarantino's like rejuvenates a bunch of people's careers with something like this.
It's also the continued ascent of people like Uma Thurman and Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
Like he had appeared in Goodfellas in a small role. He was in Jurassic Park right before this. So he's been supporting roles, but this gets him an Oscar nomination, and then
Yeah.
he's in the A-list. He and Bruce Willis go on to do Die Hard with a Vengeance next year. It's like they're on top of the world after Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah, and this is one of the few movies where I think it benefits rewatches because there's so many Easter eggs.
And this is the beginning of when you start to notice there's maybe a Tarantino verse where he has like the Apple cigarettes or his product placement.
Yes, yeah,
So that he doesn't have to worry about product placement, but it ends up being a thing that people hunt for in all his future films. Or they notice that certain characters are related to others, like
Vega Brothers, yeah.
Eli Roth is the uncle of somebody, I think, in Pulp Fiction from Inglourious Bastards.
Right.
Stuff like that. The reason I think I like it is you can pop in anywhere and enjoy a scene or two and move on. Like if you catch it on TV and you see the scene where they're at the restaurant, you watch that for a few minutes, then you keep going.
You catch the
Or
Gimp
Bruce
scene.
Willis, yeah, you see Bruce Willis hitting Ving Rhames and then watch 20 minutes of it and enjoy that. And you know what's happened before and after. You don't need to see the whole movie and you can enjoy a few minutes. It's one of the most perfect films for that reason.
It's
Uh-huh.
darkly funny. I think people forget that most of Tarantino's movies are comedies.
Yeah.
Like it's a crime drama, yes, but it's more like a satirical version of a crime drama.
It's violent comedies.
Even with like Reservoir Dogs, it's a heist movie where you never see the heist. This is another movie where you never see what's in that case. It's just a MacGuffin, and there's so many theories about what's in that case.
Mm-hmm.
But you never see hitmen in the lead up to a standoff. The beginning of the movie is just them having mundane dialogue. We never saw two hard-boiled characters just having mundane dialogue about fast food.
Which is sort of him appealing to the films he loved watching at the video store he worked at, all the French things where it's like, yeah, Alain Delon just passed away a few months ago. His characters were so smooth, and that's what he's trying to get with Jules and Vincent.
Yeah.
So you just see him going about his day in those French films. And so this is sort of like him doing an American noir version of those films.
Yeah, he just fills in the gaps where most directors would cut away and be like, oh, that's just filler.
Mm-hmm.
He makes the filler interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It could be just because people have imitated this since then. And it's
become a cottage industry in America. It's either Kevin Smith or Tarantino you're following.
Yeah. So it became like people would just ramble in these monologues, and you're like, something about Tarantino's dialogue is just so literate that it doesn't sound self-indulgent. Whereas when people try to imitate it, it does.
Well, it's because they're mimicking him and not like doing their own thing.
Right. Yeah.
You got to learn your own style, even if it starts out copying. And that's sort of what Tarantino is. He's copying Visconti or his other idols, and then he makes it his own. Right. That's what made him special.
Puts his own spatter on it.
What do you guys think? I know Corey and I've been talking a lot about it.
Sorry.
No, I mean, you guys hit all the points. I mean, this was one of those. This was not my first intro to Tarantino, but I think I saw it later on in his. I'm trying to think of what the first one was that I saw. I'll come back to it on that. But the
Kill Bill, maybe.
Yeah, I think that might have been it.
Yeah, no, Kill Bill came out when we were in high school. So like,
Right.
if you didn't see Pulp Fiction first, like Kill Bill would have been your first Tarantino film.
This first one I saw in theaters for sure.
Yeah,
I saw them maybe the same week. If I didn't see Pulp Fiction by the time I saw Kill Bill 1, Pat may have made us watch it.
yeah. No, I'm pretty sure I saw Pulp Fiction first, somewhere on like HBO or something. And I was like, "Ooh, this is a good movie, yes, sir."
Ironically, I think I caught it. I caught parts of it, and that might be why I like it just popping in.
Yeah.
Because I think I saw scenes from it, so I'm like, I know this is a good movie, but I've never seen the whole thing. And then Pat made us sit down and watch it, 304 or something.
It was Kill Bill, and then I was like, oh, I like this. And Pat was like, oh, you should watch Pulp Fiction. And then that was that. And then I think it was Reservoir Dogs and Volume 2.
I can see that.
Figure out the chronology, like my Tarantino chronology.
I can see ours being the same thing. I bet Pat made us watch both.
Yes.
And
well, I'm glad he did because we all seem to like it.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect film. I did cite this as my pick of the month for Bruce Willis when we covered him for picks of the month. I think it's his best role. He's insanely good in this.
What about Die Hard?
I love him in that too, but there's something about this I always go back to when he's sitting in the cab trying to contemplate if he made the right decision and everything. There's something about him where he actually has. It's the most subtlety you'll ever see from Bruce Willis.
He's an underrated actor.
I could have given you 10, honestly, but
I was gonna say, like Unbreakable, Sixth Sense,
yeah,
a lot of stuff with.
Yeah.
And
I've come to realize he is one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, trying to think of anybody else in Pulp Fiction we'd want to talk about.
I don't think I had seen Ving Rhames in anything major until this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this sort of helped his career.
This, I swear to God, this might have started and this is before the internet, so the memification of Christopher Walken.
Oh, yes.
Because this is where he started to become a little bit of a self-parody.
Right.
After stuff like this, because he did True Romance, obviously, which is Tarantino's.
In King of New York, he's kind of being a slick gangster in a couple of films in the.
And how many times have I seen gifs of him from King of New York doing the dance?
Right.
But now he's straight up a parody of himself. But this, I think, started that. Although we do have highlights throughout his career, like Catch Me If You Can, where he shows he still can be a really powerful actor.
I just think these and his dancing in the music video by Fatboy Slim, he became like the cool uncle to everybody our age.
Yeah.
And that's sort of been passed on to Jeff Goldblum, who's like 10 years younger. They're like the cool uncle that comes over, makes you laugh for a few hours, and then gets the hell out of there.
Yeah. There's weird little cameos from like comedians in the movie too.
Oh yeah.
There's Kathy Griffin shows up, Julia Sweeney.
Uh-huh.
And who's the voice actor? You get
the guy that did Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets shot.
I forget his name too.
Oh, he's the one that's shot in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's also in Futurama, right?
Right.
Oh yeah. He's in Futurama too.
Yeah.
Also, this is like the signature Frank Whaley character that we get for the 90s and 2000s. Just the weasel character that he would play.
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi's got a small cameo.
So yeah, I think we're pretty satisfied with our top 5, right? That's a good top five. I
Thank
I
you.
wanted to
I'm
bring up.
shocked
I wanted
that
to bring up.
Forrest Gump wasn't in there.
Well, I wanted to bring up other films that we mentioned. I know Jimmy mentioned. Oh, you didn't. You didn't mention Forrest Gump at all. I'm surprised about that.
Oh yeah,
You did, Corey. You're the only one. Wow.
I'm the only one
I
that Forrest Gump in the
actively
top
chose
5.
not to.
Yeah.
I do like that movie though, but like I went with the
Yeah.
movies that I knew that I really liked.
You're all cynical.
It was all pretty disparate. Like I had Angels in the Outfield it was the other one of my 5 that didn't get in.
That almost got on my list.
Corey also had Return of Jafar, which we covered. Jimmy had The Crow and Shawshank Redemption, which was a good guess by you guys.
Shawshanks,
Both of you had Clerks, but Jimmy had it as like an alternate.
Yeah.
Jeff had Clerks as well, which is a good choice. The Santa Claus would have been my 6th, Jeff. So we both
Yeah.
would have had that. And
Yeah,
you
that was
also
my
had
runner-up, but I was trying to avoid going into Christmas movies.
no, you had a 3rd. Your runner-up was The Mask.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's
Ooh,
what
there you go.
Yeah, which is a great pick, but no one else even
Yeah.
had The Mask, and I think it's in my top 10.
yeah.
Yeah. I almost got Ace Ventura on there.
Mhm.
Surprised
Yeah, mine.
Lion King wasn't on anybody's list.
Lion King would have been my like 8 or 9. I think Ed Wood is
Or
7.
even- I was gonna say Ed Wood.
Yeah, Ed Wood was almost in there. Ed Wood almost took out Pulp Fiction, but it wouldn't have stopped it from being number 1 because I had it in 5th. That's only 1 point, so it still would have beaten Stargate. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied. There were a lot of good movies this year, and it's telling that we all had pretty different top 5s, even if mine all matched yours. I'm pretty happy with this.
Mhm.
Last year we all had Jurassic Park like 1 or 2, so it was pretty easy. So each year we like to do a little bit of awards. Like I'm a huge fan of the Oscars, and so I always like to have we would alternate who picked best actor, actress, screenplay, director, and then at the end we'd pick best picture all together. So I'd always have you guys do that ahead of time. This year I forgot to even mention it, so I realized this a little late. I'm like, I'm not going to make them do it. Plus, we sort of rotated through. We've all done those 4 categories once. So I thought maybe we'll change it up. And I'll put you on the spot and have you choose a unique category yourself. I'll go first since you're kind of being put on the spot. But I'll tell you, for Jeff, I'm going to have you pick best score because you're a huge fan of music, typically. I'm going to have Jimmy, you're going to pick best visual effects because I looked at the animated films of the year and Lion King's basically the only good one. So I feel like
Yeah, but if we're going visual
effects,
effects, then like
I figured it would
Well,
go
that's the other
along
thing.
with animation. This is a huge year for CGI coming out and taking over the visual effects realm. So I figured it would be appropriate for you, Jimmy. And then Corey, I have best cinematography because you're always looking for the person that has the best eye. I know. Well, you like music. Any one of us could have done cinematography. I didn't know what Corey would do. So
No music.
if you want to switch, you're always going on about how you love Hans Zimmer, who won
Yeah,
the
I
Oscar
like
for
Hans
this.
Zimmer. I like 2 composers. I don't know.
Oh,
Do you want to do something else? Because I did put you on the
I
spot.
have no idea.
I know a best
We can
cinematography.
switch it up next year. Do you want to go first? Because you're already ready, Corey. You're always
Yeah, I got
ready before I finish my sentence.
Sorry, yeah, I just thought of one.
Great.
And looking at the list, I don't know if this would count as cinematography so as much as but yeah, it probably would because editing has as much to do with it. But Natural Born Killers, which uses many different media formats within the movie. So you got some handheld in there. You got some things that are shot against a rear projection. You got some that are shot like a sitcom.
Yep,
you
right.
you need a cinematographer who's multifaceted like that can take any genre that he's going for within the movie and make it seem seamless, even though it's supposed to be a little irregular.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that takes somebody extremely eclectic.
Who did that?
So yeah, I'm about to look that up.
I'll tell you who won for this year. It was John Toll for Legends of the Fall, which all the nominees
That's
were kind
gorgeous looking.
typical, but it's like the vistas that you're capturing.
Oh, it's Robert Richardson.
Robert Richardson. Good guy.
Okay. He's done a lot of Tarantino movies.
Yep.
And Scorsese.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, that makes sense. John Toll won back-to-back years, actually. This was his first Oscar, and he won next year for Braveheart. They both make sense.
Yeah.
I
understand that. Yeah, but those, you know what the funny part is? Those are almost easy because you have sweeping vistas where I would almost give more credit to the location scout that came up.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it'd be hard to not photograph those things beautifully.
I know. That's the kind of annoying thing. Cinematography ends up being what looks nice, and
Right.
people pick nice vistas. The other nominees for cinematography were Forrest Gump, The Shawshank Redemption, a movie called Three Colors Red, which there was a series of 3 films by this Polish guy who was trying to get vibes down for, I don't know the plot, unfortunately, but if Corey stops dying, he might be able to tell us. Do you know Three Colors, Corey?
Yeah, I haven't seen them.
Do you know what it's about? I have no idea. I know Juliette Binoche's in one of them. I think this one, Red.
It's just like 3 different stories with a color motif in each one of them.
Right. Cool. And then Wyatt Earp, which again,
Okay,
sure they
yeah.
found some good locations.
You shot out on the frontier, and that's hard to screw up. So
Yeah. Fun fact: next year, when John Toll wins Best Cinematography, his wife Lois Burwell also wins Best Makeup. I just want to put that out there because that's a
There you go.
fun fact for fans of the Oscars.
yeah, like you watch the beginning of Natural Born Killers. It's that handheld with the Dutch angle when she's fighting the guy in the bar, and then later on you got the sitcom format that looks like it was shot on video.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you'd have to know, be an expert on all those
Mm-hmm.
different types of film stock, or like how to light something like that, how to get
Mm-hmm.
scope out of everything. And obviously Robert Richardson's a master because he's worked with Scorsese and Tarantino. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you pick, Jeff, just as a bonus for cinematography? You looked glum that I didn't have you do it.
No, I just thought it was funny. I'm like, I literally do cinematography.
You're a cinematographer. I know. I should have done that. Would you have done
hang
score,
on.
Corey?
I could probably do sport.
Yeah, I should have switched you.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, it's all
Wow.
good. It's all good.
Next year.
For score.
Well, we'll switch
I
around
have-
for these 4
For score,
categories.
I
maybe.
have someone. It's fine.
Oh, there you go.
Hang on. I'm trying to.
I could go on for my category. I didn't even say what I was doing yet.
Yeah, that's true. What are you doing?
Best art direction, which is a thing that I do.
Oh, well,
Sorry,
Way to
Jeff.
snub Jeff.
I know I fucked up.
It's all good.
I did not think about it. It was 2 a.m. when I decided this.
It's all good. Cinematography. Stephen Kapsky.
What? What movie?
Ed Wood.
Oh,
Okay, fair.
Ed Wood is great cinematography. Yeah, that's a
Well,
good choice.
That will be better.
So yeah, I was gonna do art direction. The actual winner was The Madness of King George, the one we did for Poster Board just last month. The guy running through the hall in his pajamas.
It's great.
The guy that did the art direction was Ken Adam, who was one of the most famous art directors at the time. He had done 7 James Bond films, including most of the Sean Connery ones,
Okay.
and 2 of the best Roger Moore, and Spy Who Loved Me, and one of the other ones.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, he designed a Star Trek film and then put it in a Bond film. Anyway, it beat Bullets Over Broadway, Forrest Gump, Interview with a Vampire, and Legends of the Fall, which I'm thinking are just kind of typically, period pieces. All these are kind of just period pieces. There's nothing like too crazy about it. So I'm going to go a little off the wall and pick the Santa Claus, because you had to come up with a totally new world for the North Pole. You had to design all the toys. There were all the little details to each and every elf. I know there's a lot of costumes involved with that, but there's also like the stuff that's going on with his firm. You had to design specific scenes for that, make his world come to life. So I'm going with a Santa Claus.
Neil's sweaters.
Yeah, Neil Sweat. Well, that's costumes. Yeah,
I like it.
I think it's an offbeat pick.
It is.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank God you picked something within your field.
Right. Well, Jeff, I know you're a composer. Let's hear,
Yes. I also learned something in the last 5 minutes
oh,
that I was not aware of.
oh,
I did not know that Hans Zimmer did the score for The Lion King.
which won best score for the Oscars and
yes.
best song?
So I'm
Alan
gonna go
Menken?
with that guy.
I kind of handed that to you because I was like,
You
oh, Hans
did.
Zimmer, Jeff.
I
So
appreciate
that's where my brain went.
I appreciate the punt.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my pick. I'm not
That's
gonna
why
go
I
into too much
picked it for
detail
you.
because it's
Yeah, it's a Jeff thing.
Tristan's the puppet master behind this whole thing. He's pulling the strings.
It beat, guess what? Forrest Gump, Interview with the Vampire, Little Women, and The Shawshank Redemption, which has a sweeping score that could have maybe beaten The Lion King, but Can You Feel the Love Tonight and Circle of Life were too powerful to stop. What would you have picked, Corey, if I'd switched you guys?
If I pick score,
Yeah.
Forrest Gump's that theme when the feathers coming down is pretty good.
That's true. Yeah, it's a good pick. That should have won.
Shawshank when he comes out in the rain, obviously.
Yeah.
Those are two very
It was a good year for score,
yeah.
honestly. And that brings us to you, Jimmy. There were only 3 nominees this year. They used to have less than they usually do. They had 5 now, but this was a burgeoning field.
Yeah, I mean, for visual effects, like I'd
For
probably
CGI.
have like a toss up between like Stargate and Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump because like the composite shots where he's like in the film footage, like it's like for the time, like now it's dated, but like back then it's like, oh, he's there with the president, blah blah
Still
blah.
looks
Sort of
pretty
revolutionary, yeah.
But then like Stargate, it was sci-fi. You have to
Right.
have good visual effects for it to be a good sci-fi.
Right. Yeah, the morphing of the helmets I thought was
Yeah,
always pretty
no,
cool.
that was pretty dope. But the one minus probably would have to be like the Stargate itself. Because it's like ripply water and like for
Sliders.
CGI generate water, it's a little tricky. But like The Abyss came out in 1989, so like
They could have done better.
yeah.
Affected it then.
So you want to
they
stick with
basically it was a big splash compared to like having water actually animated and moving like a living thing. So but for the most part, like sci-fi visual effects.
You want to stick with Forrest Gump then? Maybe if you had to choose one.
Yeah, if it's gonna be
Sounds
one or
like
the
it.
other, probably. But like, and again, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll go Forrest Gump because the compositing is like very convincing that like it's happening. And again,
I wasn't trying
might
to
be
push you,
dated now, but it worked then.
You were kind of saying the drawbacks of both. So I was like, I don't know
Yeah,
which
I
one
mean,
you
yeah,
actually
so-
like.
Yeah.
It is funny though. That's what won the Oscar. It actually beat
Yeah,
out The
no.
Mask, which when that movie was covered in that episode, it was we were lamenting that Forrest Gump beat it.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then-
with Forrest, with when it compared to the mask, like for the mask, it's supposed to be cartoony and whatnot, but like for CGI, then like you could get away with it because it was still clunky and like rubbery looking, not realistic at all for the
Sure.
most part. Like you have like a lot of movies that manage to pull the realism off, but that required a higher budget.
This is why I picked you to do this one.
Yeah. So yeah, the mask is like it's good for what it is, but like compared to like visual effects are supposed to like feel real, obviously not.
Sure. Yeah, it would also beat out True Lies, which I think is fine. You know.
True Lies was great.
Yeah. I don't know that it's better visual effects than Forrest Gump, because those composite shots are pretty good. And the mask, while rubbery, it's the most visual effect.
The specific shot I can think of in True Lies that's obviously a visual effect was when at the end when the terrorist falls onto the rocket and he shoots it, but it's shot really well, so it doesn't look like a green screen in the background. I also think it's the camera's moving into his face as well.
Sure.
James Cameron knows how to shoot stuff.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to our final one, which we always do. We all pick our best picture. The nominees this year were Forrest Gump, which was the winner. 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which won the BAFTA. Pulp Fiction, Quiz Show, and The Shawshank Redemption. I think I know what we would all probably pick because that we had our best film, but I honestly don't know that I'd pick Chungking Express for best picture.
Probably Pulp Fiction.
And The Lion King won the Golden Globe for best comedy. Well, Forrest Gump won.
That's a comedy?
Well, comedy, musical. They didn't know where to put animation.
Yeah.
They often lump animation in with comedy.
Shakespearean sibling death.
Listen.
It's a comedy.
It's a kid's movie. So
it's
like,
bright. They dance on giraffes' heads.
Timon and Pumbaa.
Listen, yeah. There you go.
Well, I'm gonna jump the gun and take the lead and be like Shawshank on this list.
I was gonna say Pulp Fiction.
I think it should have beaten Forrest Gump. Shawshank.
Oh yeah.
Pulp Fiction. Yeah, I kind of want to go with Shawshank. I really think it should have beaten.
Is that still number 1 IMDb 100?
It might be. It's top 250, top 100. Yeah, it's top 250.
I was gonna say, I just know that.
Yeah, it's still number 1.
Jesus.
With a 9.3.
That's insane.
There's only 7 films with a 9 or better star rating. And that's 3 million people have ranked it that high.
And
I think people don't use this anymore. Is the
also the
other
movie
thing.
tanked when it first came out, so it's
Pulp Fiction is number 8 with 8.9. And Forrest Gump is number 11 with 8.8. People really like 1994.
apparently.
We got to say those 3 films are really good.
Oh no,
So
they're not.
now it brings us to our favorite part of the episodes. Usually, right?
Is it poster boy?
It's poster boy. We're not showing you anything, Jeff. Don't worry. You don't have to wake up.
Wait, we got poster boy?
I'm giving you the points that you
Right.
scored over the
this
year.
is how I find out how much I've failed over the past year.
You did do
I get a
worse than last
surprise
year.
because I get points
You did
too.
worse than last year.
Yeah, you had 96.5 last year. You only got 88 this year.
Oh,
However,
a
you did
B
score
average.
a perfect point for the September episode. You got 15 points for not only knowing the movie, but also guessing the alternate title. It was the My Summer Story one, where it runs in the family.
That was crazy that he knew that.
And you got the correct Culkin, and you also made up a new title based on your own plot. It was a perfect day, and it was a good title. You know, it was a great one. So I was very proud of you that day.
It was a shining moment.
You kind of sputtered the last 2 months, but they were kind of difficult. They didn't really give you anything, so
He's going on his epitaph.
so it kind of brought your average down. But you'll always have September '94.
I'll always have.
I also want to point out that one of my favorite things you said this year was Karate Kid is just Rocky for children.
It's the same director.
Yeah, I liked that.
I did.
Jimmy, I hate to say it, you got 3 points this year. Not bad, but you actually only chimed in twice. You didn't do that much. Yeah, you helped Jeff, but you never actually outright said something or like.
I didn't interject as much.
Yeah.
Points for not.
Yeah, you actually did in one episode. You said something funny and then said something really obnoxious, so it canceled each other out. I gave 7 points to Corey, actually. He had a really good quote towards the end of the year. I forget what movie it was, but we were talking about November. It might have been Junior was the poster, right? The one with Arnold getting pregnant.
Arnold pregnant.
Yeah, and Jeff's like, hey, is it Corey awful or civilian awful? And Corey's like, it's civilian awful.
Yeah.
Just like so dismissive. It was the tone of both your quotes that I think.
There's a different level. Corey has
Yeah.
a different standard than the rest of the human race. So
Yeah. I love that. Made me chuckle. So
I'm the reason that Sony's not doing it.
88 is nothing to scoff at. I think back in 1990 you got like 14 points. So you're coming along. Like this should be your average. You should get close to 100. And I'm actually grading things on an actual scale at this point. So I'll never reveal my secrets.
Okay, Drew Carey.
No, points don't matter.
Yeah.
It's all vibes. Speaking of vibes, what did we feel about 1994? Were we happy with this year? I feel like there's always a favorite year from our childhood. Like I love 96. I'm looking forward to that. 93 was a good year. This one I felt was down, but I was happy with our top 5.
94 is coming into we're coming into the years where I'll know what the hell's going on.
We always,
Yeah, you're 6 by now.
Tristan had always said that as we progress through these, the poster boys are going to be harder and harder for us to conceal what they are because you're going to know them.
Mm-hmm. Which
Yeah,
is
that's
fine.
why you got to go digging for some really obscure shit.
And that's why we started. I noticed my progression for what I actually photoshopped. I mean, Jimmy helped me with a clone stamp for that one Hudsucker proxy one. And then I should give you points for that. I'll give you 10 more points. You get 13.
All right, cool.
Yeah. You actually edited a poster board.
Yeah. And hey, I helped with the cat face, remember?
Yeah.
So I'll get another one. Another 10. Come on.
Yeah, sure. You're 23.
Come on, give me another 10.
This is your best year, Jimmy.
Yeah.
give me praise.
give me points. Come on. I'm half Asian, so I have to have a good grade.
I will take
or I'll dishonor my family.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Interjections podcast where the plots are made up and the points don't matter.
Yeah. And Tristan will just give points away like it's candy.
Yeah, you know.
We looked at last year and we were noticing that Kevin Costner's star was sort of fading, and these were really earnest dramas that he was doing. And I feel like the blockbusters are starting to take over in the action vein, like Speed. I feel like there are a lot of those, like Blown Away, obviously kind of both similar, but
True Lies.
Yeah, there's a lot of like high octane action this year.
You know, I did notice a trend. And we kind of touched on it when Jeff had the mask on his list. So a lot of the big comedy stars of the 90s and 80s did huge bombs this year. Huge bombs.
Mm.
John Candy's last movie came out this year was terrible.
Mm.
Steve
R.I.P.
Martin capped off the year with Mixed Nuts.
Mm.
Murphy did Beverly Hills Cop 3. Dan Aykroyd did Exit These. These are legendarily bad comedies.
Yeah.
However, the silver lining was Jim Carrey did 3 huge movies. This was the
The year of Carrey.
Yeah, the year of Carrey. So I think it went back to more of a physical comedy, like a Jerry Lewis kind of throwback in terms of comedy this year.
Yeah, it's a good point. Those other guys were all like talking comedy.
Yeah.
Like wit or like
Yeah, like Eddie's big,
quotes.
yeah. Eddie's the motor mouth.
Right.
You know?
Dan Aykroyd's always looking to get a Bugs Bunny quote in there.
Hey, Eddie, Dan Aykroyd's very fast paced when he talks.
Yeah.
Let's get that exposition out.
It is interesting. Those are all people we covered and just never seen again in the 90s.
Yeah, because they're all doing pretty terrible movies. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a sea change because you notice that Jim Carrey kind of sets the tone for the comedy in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
after this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kind of manic physical comedies.
Yeah.
And then it leads right up until about 2003 when you get the Will Ferrell and Judd Apatow style.
Right.
That takes over the stoner bro comedies.
And I'm happy to see that Jim Carrey's still going strong with these Sonic movies. He's still
yeah.
If this ends up being his legacy, like he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna do Sonic movies from now on. I think
He's
I think
60,
the
yeah,
entire
once-
world
whatever.
would
he's
be happy.
fantastic in them though.
He's
Yeah,
made his
fine.
money. He was gonna retire, but he's just like,
He's imprinting on the new generation.
Yeah.
He is.
So now he's going to have 2 eras.
Like
His
I
Sonic
said,
era and his 90s era.
everything.
I was
in
just saying,
between.
when you watch these Sonic movies, you're like, this is like, I feel like a kid again because this is vintage like 90s Jim Carrey.
He's returning to form.
Yeah,
I feel bad to call someone out for this, but Ben Stiller just made that movie Nutcrackers, and he's trying to recapture the magic that he had in the late 90s. And he
Right.
started out with Reality Bites this year. That was one of our poster boys, and it's kind of a shame because Jim Carrey's not trying to recapture Ace Ventura. He's just doing Sonic. And yes,
Jack
that's
Black
IP, but
trying to do the same thing.
yeah, it's kind of sad. So I don't know what they need to do to reinvent themselves in their 60s. But
Oh,
it's
no,
not what they're doing.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Stiller's such a great director. I'm fine with him just being a director,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I'm excited because Severance is finally coming back.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I got to catch up on that.
It's been 3 years.
That's why I took my time. I'm like, it's never coming.
Yeah. I have to rewatch the whole thing.
Oh, speaking of which, I started The Sopranos this year. New year,
Yeah?
new me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
bang,
Finally. Finally. He loves those ducks. I never knew.
The ducks are important.
I am betting on that. I noticed there was a thing about that. He's so cute. Tony Soprano's really cute. I really hope
He's endearing.
That was the whole pitch. They're just like, listen, so he's this terrifying mob boss, but he's cute.
but he loves
Got
the
it.
ducks.
Yeah, he loves the ducks. That was David Chase's pitch.
Yeah.
And HBO's like, fuck it, yes, let's do it.
Sure.
5
whatever.
seasons.
I can't wait.
The
Anyway.
metaphor is he's playing Duck Duck Goose with the FBI.
Oh boy.
That's what
Anyway.
it is.
What's in store for 1995?
Well, I did sort of bring up Ben Stiller because he's going to show up in our February film, where we got heavyweights coming up, and right before that, for our January episode, just in a couple weeks, we're going to cover our first ever proper horror film. We did Eve of Destruction, but that's kind of sci-fi, and we did a lot of thrillers, like the one where what's his face is a home invader. Why am I losing his name?
Renting out the house or the duplex.
Yeah. I got stuck on John C. Reilly. Well, there's one. The River Wild's more of a thriller than anything else. So yeah, we never did an outright horror, but we have Demon Knight as presented.
Crypt presents.
Yeah, as presented by them.
Crypt Keeper, yeah.
I never watched those shows.
What?
Yeah. Well,
get outta
it was
here.
on what was it on
all the
HBO?
time. Yes.
That's the thing. I never had HBO. That's why I'm starting The Sopranos now.
Yeah. Well, they had the Crypt Keeper late night on I forget what channel it was, but like you'd catch episodes there.
TBS had them, I think.
Yeah, TBS.
Okay.
Or was it?
Yeah,
Something like that. TBS or USA or something like that.
I remember people bringing him up to me late,
And then
night,
eventually Sci-Fi.
and I had sort of missed the Tales from the Crypt stuff,
Uh,
and I just like had never watched it. I'm like, what is
The
this?
funny part is we technically, it's unofficial Tales from the Crypt movie. We covered Death Becomes Her, which feels
Yeah, it
like
was going to be a Tales from the Crypt movie, and
Yeah. And Zemeckis and Bob Gale, I
Bob
think,
Gale.
produced both of these. So
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's supposed to be a third one that never came out, but we'll talk about that in the January episode. So yeah, I'm very excited to cover a horror film. We could talk about maybe we'll do our favorite horrors. I don't know who's in Demon Knight, so we may not have an actor to cover.
oh, there's plenty of candidates in there.
Okay.
We got
I'm
William
fine.
Sadler and Billy Zane.
Oh.
And
Well,
Hayden Church.
we might cover Billy Zane in '96.
I hope so.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're doing
How about-
Demon Knight next year.
Coming next season.
Yeah. Thanks for listening for 5 seasons. We're right now, once these credits end, halfway through the series. That'll be great, right? Hopefully you're enjoying this.
yeah.
Hopefully we make it to the second half.
Yeah.
No,
If
it's
we
That's
an
survive
idea.
the
That's
Come on.
next. That's next episode. I mean the end of the second half. Yeah.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
we're at 65 episodes right now. So kind of crazy when we were
Wow.
just like, what do we do when we're trapped inside in 2020?
Yep.
So I'm very happy you three kept going with me as much as we have.
It's been fun. Let's keep
Yeah.
going.
Yes, sir.
See y'all next year. James is a little snob.